Thank you everyone for showing us support on our last episode. Episode 7. It was a crazy one. But
They're all a little
today
crazy in their own special way.
they are. But welcome to episode 8. Today we are going to be talking about integrating your hens and the pecking order, which is an actual thing. For those who think that it's not, it is. And it was started because of chickens.
Yep. So let's say last episode was chicks, wasn't it? We talked about chicks. Chick care. Yeah, that's what it was. Chick care. So let's say your chicks are now grown up and it's time to move them out of the brooder and in with the flock. So how do you integrate and get your two groups together? So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, integrating. So how to get two groups acclimated to each other. A good way to start is by putting them maybe a shared fence. So like your one group can be on this side and the other group can be over here, and it gets them used to each other, but they still can't harm each other in any way because of the fence. A way that we do it is we'll put our young group in a chicken tractor, which we've talked about those before, chicken tractors. But we'll put them in a pen, and then the other hens can walk around the pen, get used to the new birds. The new birds get used to them. It kind of they just like inspect each other, but there's still that fence, there's still that boundary, so they can't like attack each other. But that's what we do. I don't know what you do, if you want to talk about that.
I do about the same thing. Before it wasn't really a problem. I mean, they shared the fence, but now that I'm using the like dog pen, it's the 10x10 thing, and my main flock is in the 10x10, and then I have a smaller one which is like a 6 by something, a bit shorter, and I'll just put the chicks in there, and then they both connect to the same larger run. So I'll let the hens out for about a week and let them go all around the fence. I'll throw food literally right on the outside so little ones can get some. And then after that 1 week, I'll open it and then I'll just let them go. Most of the time there isn't any problem. Now, if you're doing it with really young chicks, just don't, in my opinion. I would hold off until
what do you suggest is a good age to start combining your groups?
Depends on how they are. Chicks are usually more forgiving. Like if you go to Tractor Supply, you get a group of 10 chicks at the beginning of July, and then you go towards like July 15th. I'd say, I mean, that's still, you can combine those chicks right away. There's no problem. I would even say into the end of July, you could just monitor everything because those other chicks are going to be really big, or going to be larger. But I do it as if they're about the same size or a little bit, like they're just around the same weight. That's what I do. So if the smallest chick is about the size of my leghorn in weight, then that's what I do, because my leghorns are my smallest ones. So it's just pretty easy to go off that. And I don't break a scale out or anything.
We do feathers too. So if your hens are fully feathered, you want to start getting them out to graze, get a little bit more grass, start learning to forage on their own. It's good for them to be outside, starting to learn those skills of a hen or rooster, whatever you have. But when you put two groups side by side like that, about a week, you said about a week it can help the birds form bonds. That way, whenever you're ready for them to be housed together, they already have that solid, like just a little bit of a bond. They know who these chicks are, and it's not going to be as bloody as if you just threw a bunch of chicks in with full-grown hens. So take that into consideration.
I have done that method before, where I just put chicks in, and it was not a pretty sight, even with chicks that were a month and a half, 2 months apart. they still got aggressive, and that was before I went to my grandma's earlier this summer. And the day before I left, I was like, hey, I might as well just put these chicks out. They're old enough. They're going to be okay. They were not. I ended up having to fish them out of the coop, and they were, I mean, not real bad, but they were a little bit bloody. And I was like, they'll just go out when I get back. And that's what happened. And by that time, it was fine. There was no problem at all. So definitely just judge your birds also. If
Yeah.
they seem more aggressive, then deal with it. And if there's blood, separate, because chickens it's a weird thing. The color red is just weird with chickens, where it's anything red but blood in particular.
Yeah.
They'll start pecking at it, and it'll start off
Yeah.
as something real tiny,
It'll
and it
get
can turn
worse.
into something huge.
Yeah.
So definitely separate if you see blood.
And I've seen people use and I have some it's called Blue Coat. You can get it at Tractor Supply. But basically it's just like a paint. Like obviously it's safe for animals, but it's a paint that you'll just put on the like wounds. Let's say it's a
medical spray is a better
there's hey, what I have is paint, okay? It's literally paint. This is what it is. So if it's like maybe a bloody comb or the wattles are bloody, just paint that on there. Paint it. Because I think it's paint. Put it on there, whatever you have, spray, paint, whatever. Doesn't matter. Put it on there. It'll help them. Good grief. This podcast is crazy.
And it's called Blue Coat for anybody. I do understand where you're coming from. I didn't know there was paint, like a paint version.
I didn't know there was spray.
I've only seen the spray, so I've never seen the other one.
I bought ours years ago, so maybe they updated, like, because ours is pretty old.
But it's called Blue Coat for anybody. Yeah. It's just something you can use for animals. It's safe. Most of the time it's used for poultry, but I think I have seen it used on other things. I'm just not entirely sure on that.
Yep. And so now your birds are kind of acclimated to each other. Now you go into housing them together. So a way that we do it to get chickens into their new coop is we'll put the new birds on the roost at night with the other hens. And what that does is it still is getting the original group used to the new group, but they can't hurt them still because it's dark. And so there's not going to be as much fighting, where if you just, like I said, toss the chicks into the runway with the hens, you're going to have some pecking back and forth, squabbling, fighting. So we do the nighttime thing. But typically our birds, it's real weird. We'll just open the door on the chick pen and everybody just runs around together because we free range. So everybody, they can just take off, they can run. So like my birds, when I put all my birds together, they'll probably be fine. They probably won't fight too much, but that's because we've got them acclimated to each other, and they've gotten used to each other, and they formed little bonds, and they know like who's the boss and who's not the boss.
Yeah. I do think
do the nighttime thing.
I do and don't I did when they were younger, or with my first two groups, and then the group that I have now, which I think it's a group of 12, 11, or it's 11, it's between 11 and 15. I know that. What I do is everybody gets locked up at night because we have cats, raccoons, and possums really bad.
Yeah.
And I've lost a duck to a cat before, and I'm not going to do it again. So I shut everybody in their pens. The chicks go to their pen, the adults go to their pen, and the ducks go in with the adults. I shut everything. In the morning, I wake up and I do the chicks first. I open the door, feed them the chick food and some scratch, and then just some layer pellets mixed in between as well. And that works really well. And then I do probably 20 to 45 minutes, and then I let the older hens out. And then, I mean, they are kind of running out, so it does get a little bit like it looks like they're going to fight, but not, hectic. and it looks like that, but it's not, because then they all start eating, and then the chicks will come back and start eating again as well. So everything's fine, but most of the time after that 25 to 45 minutes, they aren't, the chicks usually aren't hungry, but the ones that are still out there doing their own thing. And it gives them time while the older hens are eating to just go out and do really whatever they want.
Yeah. So whenever you go and you house them, now there's going to be some fighting, and that's called the pecking order. So maybe you've heard that before. If you're into all like the chicken talk, chicken group things that they have, maybe you've heard of pecking order before. But I will give you a quick definition, and we'll go into detail about the pecking order and stuff. But the pecking order is literally determined by pecking. It's determined by pecking. The strongest and typically most aggressive, not really aggressive, but they have like a more dominant vibe to them. So the strongest birds will fight their way to the top of the flock by pecking the others, and it's like, it looks like sad at first, but you can't help it. Chickens are just going to do it. You can't avoid it. Chickens, there's going to be a pecking order. Every time you add new chickens to the flock, there's always going to be a pecking order. There's going to be a squabble. There's going to be some little chicks screaming for their life because a hen came out of nowhere and just pecked them on the back. And typically it's just little pecks. Sometimes it can be really aggressive. If you have roosters, that's typically that's a big fight. But
I will say this, the roosters won't really attack chicks if there's a mother with them. If there isn't a mother with them, I haven't personally had to deal with that. But they shouldn't really pick on the chicks because they'll kind of automatically assume they're theirs. But the roosters won't pick on them as much. The roosters will really just go for the other roosters, and the hens will go for the other hens because it's the largest hens or the most aggressive hens that are usually at the top. And then what it is the roosters right here. It's kind of like a pyramid. It's the roosters at the top, or rooster, and then after that it's the dominant hens, and then farther down the list it's just other breeds, and then some of them are just naturally less aggressive, so they're automatically at the bottom. But and also another thing with this, the roosters will let the dominant hens eat first, and they're also their favorite hens. And I've seen how it is. The favorite hens are actually get moved up the pecking order to the more dominant places. And then if you take that rooster out, another one comes in and she's no longer the favorite. She goes right back down to the place that she was before, or even lower or higher. She just has to fight for those places. The best way I can describe it is it's kind of like NASCAR, where you're just like, you're moving up and back. Nothing's usually the same ever. I mean,
nothing's really set in stone. It's always a
the dominant hens are usually always the most dominant, though. When I had my other hen pass away not too long ago from the owl, she was a dominant hen up there with another one, so I had two. And when she died, everything went into chaos because it was just them trying to figure out who was going to fill her place.
Yeah.
And the one that filled her place was the Buff Orpington. They can be more aggressive about all of the pecking order, but it was also because she is one of my largest hens. So she automatically had that advantage over others.
And like you said, it's kind of like a pyramid. Like I wrote down, it was like a ladder. It's like the same, like it's the same thing. Pyramid, ladder. But at the top is typically it's the respected bird. It's the most aggressive, the one who fought her way to the top, and at the bottom is the lowly bird. This sad bird that doesn't really, typically it's a new bird, could be chicks and stuff, or it's a not very aggressive bird. Maybe she didn't really want to fight for that place.
Or an older or a sick hen. Those can also be on the bottom. There's so many different things I could say to explain it, but I don't think most people will get them because I'm weird. But it's the older hens, they're usually at the top, but then once they hit a certain age and the younger chicks start coming up and they're there, they get moved down. And that's just how it is. And sometimes, and I've seen this very rarely, the hens will actually be above the rooster, where the rooster is not the top at all. And that's very rare, though, because most roosters assert their dominance a lot. But the one that I saw it on, he actually was not very aggressive. And the hens respect him and everything, but it wasn't the same as as a more aggressive rooster.
Yeah. So if
also,
you go ahead.
Sorry, I want to add this.
No, you're good.
If a hen hatches out chicks, those chicks are automatically below her. It doesn't matter what hens are. If a dominant hen hatches out chicks, those chicks automatically outrank everybody else behind that hen because they're her children. Even if they're not her children, she still hatched them out or she's raising them, so they're automatically right behind her. And it's really weird, but I've seen all of that unfold myself after reading things, and that is very much true. If a hen hatches or raises chicks, they are right after her and they eat before everybody else.
Interesting.
Except for their mom. It's
interesting. I never knew that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I have a bird that typically stays at the bottom. She's never really gotten up there. We've integrated a couple different groups of chickens in, and she's been around she's one of the original, and she's just always stayed at the bottom. So it's like she'll come, like the new chicks will come in, right? She'll do her little feisty thing, like try to be the big macho bird, and she doesn't she ends up going back down to the bottom anyway. So the chicks, even though they're younger than her and she's been around a lot longer, they still pass her in that pecking order. And the reason because of that is she doesn't really fight for her spot. She doesn't want to hold that spot, so she just kind of cowers away and runs and lets them, she just allows them to become more dominant over her.
And then another thing I also want to add on to that is if you have that, I've seen that happen with a few, but most of the time they do try to. But if they just really don't want to hold any spot above others, they'll just automatically fall to the bottom. But some like the more dominant hens will actually mount the less dominant hens. It's just a form of showing them that they're more aggressive.
I have one that does that, and I'm like, what are you doing, girl?
Yeah,
and it's like, it's
just a way for them to say that I'm over you. It's not, most of the time it's not anything coming from it, but it is still saying that I'm more dominant than you. You're below me. Keep your place, or you'll be shown in front of everybody. And that's basically what it is.
And when a chicken, like with breeding, which we've talked about breeding before, but with breeding, a rooster, not only whenever he goes to breed, he gets on the hen's back, right? So that is also dominance right there. He's not only breeding, but he's showing dominance. And when a hen squats for that, let's say even for you, let's say you're a chicken owner and you walk out and your hen like hunkers down, she squats. She's asserting to your dominance. She knows that you are above her, and she's just like, okay, you're above me in the pecking order. She just knows. So if you have a hen that squats for you, that's her just like, allowing you to pick her up. She knows that you are the more dominant. And also with hens, standing on top of one another, it's also a dominant pecking order thing.
Yeah, and I've had a rooster that he would breed like super quick, and then he would just stand on top of her. Like,
I had one that did that.
anything.
Yeah.
He stood there and he was just looking around. I shoot him off of the hen a couple times.
Right.
And another thing I also want to add before we not wrap up pecking order, but
Yeah.
before I forget also, you can't change it as much as you want to. You can separate different hens out. Another hen is just going to rise up and take that place.
Yeah.
And when you introduce that chicken back in, she will most likely fight for that spot again. So don't try to change it. You have to let everything be. And once everything is figured out, there will be peace.
There will be, yeah.
But when everything's getting figured out, it's a problem. Not really, but and the thing with roosters and hens, most of the time they figure it out when they're young. That's why you can keep two roosters that have grown up together their entire lives, is because that pecking order was decided when they were young.
Yeah.
But when you add in another rooster, that's when the hens don't know who the rooster is. The rooster doesn't know who the rooster is. So they're all trying to figure out who he is and where he falls into that pecking order. And rooster fights can get deadly.
They can be, especially if they have spurs. You gotta watch.
Mine were not that old when they were. I mean, they were mature, but they never really had spurs to full on fight and do any real damage. But they still did considerable amount of damage. I had a rooster. He went up against the fencing on the coop and he chipped his beak off. Like it looked like that.
Whoa.
His beak. He couldn't eat. I had to separate him for, it was probably 2 or 3 months that he was separated before it grew back. It was awful. And he eventually went in there and I separated him and gave him his own hens after that. And he was the one who was more aggressive, but he was not more aggressive with other roosters. So he can be more aggressive with hens, but when it came to another rooster, he was terrified. Yeah. And I was like, nobody ever hurt you. I mean, I want them to assert themselves, but don't get aggressive and don't like try to intentionally hurt one of the other ones. But what my rule is, if they're aggressive, they go. Yep. I'm not going to have an aggressive rooster. I have my brother and my sister who are out here helping me sometimes when I'm gone. And I give my roosters the rule with me. If they attack me one time, I can say, hey, it probably was not on purpose. He could have been trying to mate. He could have been trying to do anything else. I let it go.
Give him a good kick.
I've been known to actually let that go 2 or 3 times because, I mean, sometimes it is an accident and I'm just happen to be in the way. But if it's on purpose and I can tell that he's not giving up, he goes. And as harsh as that is, I'm not going to keep something that's going to be a danger to me or my siblings when I know that they help me a lot. And the same thing almost happened with our duck. One of the males attacked my sister. I was like, tell me who it is. We're going to get rid of it. She couldn't tell me who it was because both the males looked the same. And I was like, okay. And I never had a problem. She hasn't had a problem after that. I was like, then I'm not going to do anything about it because it was a one-time thing. But yeah, everything just needs to be monitored. And if it looks like it's too aggressive, take action. Yeah.
So you say about aggressive roosters and stuff, and I figure we've got a little extra time, we can talk about that. So I've had people ask me before, like, what do I do? I've got a hen that's a little bit aggressive, and for me, I don't really have that as much of a problem with an aggressive hen. I've made a point to make sure that I am the dominant, the leader of my flock per se, and they know that I'm the leader of the flock. So I don't have hens coming at me and pecking me, but let's just say, figuratively speaking, you have a aggressive hen or aggressive rooster. How would you suggest that our viewers, the people who watch, or anybody who has chickens, how would you suggest they deal with that and they show their aggressive rooster or hen that they are the boss or dominant?
I've seen people go about I've seen a couple people go about it where they will like pick up the rooster and walk around with it while they're doing chores so it knows where its place is. That works, but then sometimes they just go right back to it, so you might have to continue doing that like for a week or 2, and that's fine if you want to keep the rooster. It's just an extra step. And I've seen people get like the baby things that they like strap on their back and they can like hold it up front, and they do that and everything works fine. But it is going to take more than like just 1 or 2 days. It's going to be like a week or two process that you have to go
Yeah.
through in order to show that hen or rooster, because the same thing works for them, that you are the most dominant, or that you're more dominant over them than they are of you. And sometimes that doesn't work and you might have to deal with it if it's a hen. I hate to say that, but you might have to. But again, I've also never had this problem because I'm with my chick since day one, so they know that I mean, in a sense, their mother, because I've looked after them,
Right.
I've fed them, I've done everything.
Right.
But then when they get older, they also do look to me as more of a rooster role, because I mean, if I see a hawk or something, I'll come out here and I'll like clap 1 or 2 times and they'll all go running. And I've seen them do that where they just run it. So it's just finding out what they need and being on top of that. But then it's difficult to explain, but it's also more difficult to do. But just try the holding thing, and if the holding thing doesn't work, then you might just have a chicken that's more aggressive in nature, and that's not bad. But I know some people don't like aggressive animals, and I don't either. But I'd rather have a more aggressive than maybe a hawk or something out, and that hen or rooster can let the hens know, so they go in and hide. Sorry, that was a lot.
No. I wanted an explanation and you gave it. So
a very long one.
Thank you. No, it's all good. I was basically going to say the same thing. That's what I've suggested to people when they ask me that. Just go out and start holding them. Start spending more time with them. If you can, go sit in your chicken coop or sit with them, be around them. You don't want to just have them in a pen and you not be around them, because if you're not, then you're gonna have that problem. That's gonna be an issue later on down the line. See, my chickens know that I am the treat giver. I am the food giver. They know me and they know that I am important, and if they kick me out, then they're lost. Like, exactly. So they respect me. They know that I am the dominant one, and I mean, I think they love me because I got the treats. So
yeah.
So yeah, I would suggest the same thing. Just start holding them, holding the roosters, holding the hens. Be careful, obviously, if they're aggressive. Watch the beak. But if you're holding them, it shouldn't really mess with too much. So
yeah, and I've done I call it like bonding exercises with my hens, but it's really just me coming out here, giving them treats, giving them things like that, and that goes so much farther than people might think. We clean out our fridge weekly, not because it needs to be cleaned out, but any old fruits, vegetables, things like that, right to the chickens, and they have a blast. And then they do look to me in that role as, hey, I'm providing for them, and we're not going to, like you said, kick you out. They're not going to kick you out if
we're important. We're important.
Yeah, exactly. And then I bring their food every day. They know my face. They know my siblings' face. Well, they know my sister's face more than my brother's, but they also respect all of us because, I mean, they've been around people their whole lives. So people are above them in a sense. But I have seen them freak out with new people where they're completely different. And I'm like, whoa.
Especially with kids, I've seen my hens like just go running because kids will just chase after chickens. Like my cousins, I'm telling you, they'll just chase after all my chickens, and I'm like, you're scaring them. Please stop. And but because for me, I could just walk up to them and they'll just be around my feet. They just know. But another good way to get used to, I just thought of this, is to hand feed. So put a little bit of food in your hand, get them used to that closeness, let them know that you're safe, that you're not going to hurt them, that they can come up to you, that they can eat, because whenever they're eating, they could be, I don't know what's the word, prone to predator attack. That's not the word I wanted to use, but that's what we're gonna use. But they need to feel safe.
They're vulnerable. They're vulnerable.
That's the word. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was on the tip of my tongue, man. Thank you. But they're more vulnerable, and they think that you're the predator at first, that you're gonna attack them. But when you let them know that you're safe, that you're okay, that you're friendly, just by feeding food, it makes a world of a difference for your flock. And again, they know that you're the treat giver, and they love you even more.
Yeah. And to also elaborate on that, it's all in how you raise them also. I had a group of 23 that I raised at one time. So not everybody was friendly. I had 3 that were not friendly out of that entire group, which is great numbers. But those 2 of them are still here. The other one was a rooster that I got rid of, but I kept kids from, and I'm going into that. But the 2 hens have nothing to do with me at all. No matter how many times I've fed them anything, they just don't like me. They prefer to stay away from me. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to give you your space. And it's also respecting the hen as well. But the rooster was also like, he just didn't like being around people. He was never aggressive. He just did not like me at all. And I got a kid from from the rooster and one of the hens. And I raised that in a smaller group of 10, or it was another group of 20, but I could kind of tell that which ones were roosters and which ones were hens. So I knew that those were hens, and I spent more time with them, and they're completely chill. I can go up to them, I can pet them, I can do everything. And it's just how you raise them. But then also there are some times where it's just the breed or the specific bird that just doesn't like it. And those traits are, some of them are genetic, but not really. So you might have an entire family line of hens that just don't prefer people, but then you could have an entire one that does, or gaps in between. It's really weird, but as I've always said, do your own research. Your own research is key over anything else. Maybe we are your research.
Right.
Dive more into research, because once you start digging down deeper, and that's what I had to do, and I'm sure that's what you did, you start finding and unlocking things that you never thought that you'd ever find.
Yeah. And we're coming down to the last couple minutes here. But I think overall, this whole video, I think the key thing to all of this is patience. It really is. Because you need to give those birds time to start integrating with the flock, to acclimate to one another. Patience to, like we said, holding an aggressive bird to start bonding with your flock, to get them to know that you're the dominant one. It's all patience. It all takes time, but in the end, it's going to be so much more worth it. So, yeah.
Yes, and I would say the exact same thing. It's patience. And the way that I look at it is everything that you did wrong, and I use air quotes because of that, because nothing's ever truly wrong. It's all learning. But patience is a big thing that I think nobody has ever. I mean, there are people who are really good at showing patience, but most of us will never get to that point where we are patient with everything. There's always something that we're not patient with or anxious about. So just showing these things that are showing you what you need to learn. But next episode we will be having a special guest, so I hope you guys look forward to that.
Yeah, that'll be exciting. Our first special guest.
Yes, and we will see you guys in the or is there anything else that you would want to add?
I think that's everything.
We will see you in the next episode, and thank you for watching.
See you guys.